Hello and welcome to Dubai Trains, and welcome to this layout design video where we cover a 30 by 10 foot half a basement filler. A true rail fanning layout with some light operations to keep one busy. The layout can run trains up to 10 85-foot passenger coaches long, pulled by 3 engines, while still traveling through the landscape. The design has an 8-foot intermodal yard that holds over 40 intermodal cars in a massive 27-track, fully functional roundhouse. It also has 100 feet of continuous running, of which most is single track and only goes through the layout once. And last but not least, it transitions through 5 different landscapes, all referring to the prototype. So let's have a look at all that, and what is a better place to start than actually with the layout shape. So with a lot of projects, just like this one, I got a drawing from the client, and he says I have something like 17 feet by 15 feet, and the layout can fit in there. So if you just go off this and start planning, you'll probably have some around the room type, maybe, or a walk-in type of layout, something like this. Maybe you can have, I don't know, some peninsula here or something. But I almost always ask, what does the room look like? And upon answering that question, I got this drawing back, and this is an entire basement. So we have some kind of like window nook here on the left. We have staircase, you need to take that into account, some posts, the obvious posts. And then here are some more utility and boiler stuff on the side. Of course, we also have a walkway here and here, and probably access here as well. So if this is a space you have, you always want to take the longest length possible. So in this case, it'll be something like that. Here we have a nice arch. We can really use that in the railroading, because trains, like long curves. And then, you have another long straight here possibly, or maybe here between the stairs and the posts. You can have another island perhaps, go all the way inside, something like that. Anyways, I sent this sketch to the client because he also wanted some room for shelving. The shelving was initially here in this nook, but I convinced him that that's probably not the most efficient place for shelving. And after sharing this, we tweaked a few more dimensions, and he needed a bit more space for storage, and we came to this design. So that's all I want to mention on the layout shape, that when you're looking at your own space, try to find the longest straights possible. So let's have a look at the layout. At first glance, I just want to notice it's a loop-to-loop layout. So here on the north side, top side, you see the single track, and then going to the right, it splits off and it folds over itself, comes back, and it's basically the same down below. So we have a single track section right here, as you can see, and then it splits off, and you can go all the way around, past the yard, past staging, past intermodal, and come back. So let's just have a look. Let's just dive straight in. Let's just start at this place where it splits. And I'm also going to have some references to the landscape, and we'll come back to that later. So just want to note like how it's very rural and farmland here on the bottom. And then we go to this midsection, which is the city edge, basically the suburbs and some industrial sprawl that's there. At the bottom is the intermodal facility using the Kato Unitrack system. We decided to make it a double length intermodal facility, opposed to stacking them with a half the length but twice as deep.
Now, if you're looking to get your hands on this design, you can have a look at my Patreon, where you can, through a one-time purchase, buy this exact track plan in the AnyRail file, or you can become a member and then you have access to my entire catalog.
This is really a nice feature of City Edge, these big plots of land that are all just sprinkled around in between suburbs, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. Then we have here also a passing siding with just an extra industry right here you can put on it, but you can also make it a flag stop, as passenger rail fanning, passenger running is a theme on this layout. And if we head up north, we slowly go into the urbanized area, and then here we have a yard. First track going from the top is the main line. Then we have what I would classify the arrival departure track that slips back onto the main line here. And it's also a escape for engines here to go into the engine terminal, etc. And then we have a 1, 2, 3, 4 yard tracks. And when designing this layout, zoom out a little bit, there's basically 3 different areas that we dimensioned in some way or form. So we have the intermodal yard that became this long shape. Then we have the yard right here. And then last but certainly not least is the engine facility. And then of course also, where does the rest of the layout here start? Where or how do you make this transition to more rural landscape? So we came up with this balance, so with a relatively small yard, with a large engine facility, and then a long intermodal to make the balance, to make the shift from urban area here on the right to less urban going leftwards. Now one note is that the yard does not need to accommodate for the intermodal trains, because these will not go through the yard. These are unit trains, so these cars, the well cars, will not be sorted in the yard itself. So the yard is basically dimensioned to support the rest of the layout. Now this entire facility right here, we'll talk about that in a bit later on in the video. Going around the curve, you can either dive into stub-ended staging, or you can go past this very compressed urban scene right here and go back to the loop, to the siding, or go straight into the intermodal yard. And this scenery right here, when I drew in it, is very compressed. This is not very functional scenery as such, that cars can actually ride here, etc. No, there's this viaduct right here that masks the entrance of the yard, and then all these buildings here are basically stacked and compressed. The roads don't connect, and it's just to create extra layers of scenery. And why is that? Well, because this is not the main focal point. This is just to hide the background and to tell a story that the main Union Station is here. The passenger trains that go to staging will end up at this station. And by compressing it like this, you can have more story, more depth going on than you actually have space for. And on top of that, we have this massive engine facility, which most people will be looking at, in all fairness. So heading towards the other direction, we have the farmland. Here we have an interchange siding that heads off here to the outside world. So on this green selected piece of track, you can actually spot some cars, and you can extend it all the way up here if you would have more cars. This is also a siding where trains can meet and pass each other if that's necessary. And here you see the landscape is slowly changing from farmland to more rough farmland, and then into what I would call lakeland with a lot of water, and then slowly into more and more rocky terrain. We will have a look at that later on. This area right here is actually very well known to the client, so it has very distinct features. Anything from a boat dock, flag stop, rock cut, lakes, waterways, canoe, different structures, road over the track, parking lot, all of that is in there. And continuing to the right, there's another siding right here in a station. Again, it's relatively rural, so there is a gravel road here, but that's about it. Bit of a makeshift passenger platform where you just get off on compacted sand, basically. And the line continues here off layout. As well, here we have somewhat of an interchange section built where the line here goes off layout as well. And continuing to the right, the track makes way for this massive rock feature right here, goes through the cut, and then loops back. The staging, we have 3 long staging tracks here again. From a track point of view, that's it, but there's more to this layout. So let's have a look. And for that, we're going to switch to Google Maps. So here we have a city, community city. In this case, it's Winnipeg. And we modeled that. So if we zoom back in, here we have the dense urban city. And then here you see these outskirts. Here is actually that intermodal yard. And if you just look, it's in between the residential area. There's some industry area here. There's something here. I believe there might be a school. Massive railroad yard, of course, elephant in the room, and then some more rural land, golf course, etc., etc. And if we slowly zoom out to the right, because that's the way we're heading eastwards, we have this massive farmland area. We have the known grid system, and then more to the right, we see we have a bit of a more. Just zoom out even a bit more. You can see it better. We have this rural. Wild land with water and bushy, and then we slowly go to more and more lakes here to the right and more rocks as well, especially if we zoom out, sheer size of everything. So a lot of lake land, and this transition we wanted to capture. So in a nutshell, this will be the transition: rural, semi-rural, farmland, and then farmland goes into more rough farmland, and then we get the green patches, we get more water, and then also the rocks added into the mix. So just looking a little bit step by step, how would you do that if you were interested to do that? So you take one of the features, so here's the intermodal yard, you have to compress it. You cannot model this entire thing. It's massive. We have 1 track here and then 6 tracks. That alone will fill the layout. And then this distance right here as well is, what is it, 5 times 40-foot containers. So that's very large, but we did get to manage to capture the essence of it, I believe. And also these tracks up north right here for the other sub yard, somewhat captured by this siding right here. Just having the structures, some more land. It's nice here to have this entryway for the trucks into the intermodal facility. That's nice to model. So moving on, then we go to the farmland, and yeah, I think this image speaks for itself. I'm quite happy how this turned out. It's a tricky thing to model, especially in this nook, in this house, because that doesn't really rhyme well with a grid system of the roads, as you see. But I think we pull it off quite nice. Like I said, there is a very specific area where the track bends off, and then we have a lake in the south, in a large lake in the north, and how that's all copied in here as well, with the lake in the north, in the lake in the south. We added all these features. The rock cut is there. There's a dock and then a flag stop and and you see in the prototype there's a road and there's a parking lot and there's some structures and houses and a canoe. So that is all taken care of as well. Now let's have a quick look at the schematic. Here is the entire layout, and you see there's a lot going on actually. For passenger running, we have a station at the end. We have not 1 but 2 flag stops, and then we have the big Union Station, which is staged, but it's there. So in terms of rail fanning and having something to do with your passenger trains, there's definitely something to do there. And then we have the main yard here in the middle, and the purpose of this is mostly to switch out larger stacks of cars. So that will be for the interchange, perhaps switch up some cars for the staging at one end and for staging at the other end. And there is a siding here with this flag stop with some separate industries. But as you see, the gist of the plan is towards rail fanning. So now let's go to the engine facility. So let's just zoom in on this green box, and it will look something like this. So down below here, we have this same green box. And let's just go through all the tracks one by one. It's not that difficult. Let's just start here. We have the yard, and then we have an old caboose track, and then another track right here to do to bypass all this. So basically in the north, we have the yard right here, and this would be the old caboose track. And then here is a track you can use to bypass this whole section right here. Sorry, just right there. If you want to bypass that because it's busy. And of course, if you're on the turntable coming from the engine facility, you can use this same track to go all the way to the left, the far end of the yard, and connect to a train and to head off. Now, having a turntable in a diesel era is not super common, so you'll need some fueling tracks. That's common throughout. But now we have fueling tracks along here, 1 through track and 1 stub-ended fueling track. I think in more modern diesel facilities, they would just have a lot of fueling tracks and tracks where you can park engines. But because we have this massive roundhouse, we don't need that. So one of the fueling tracks is therefore a through track. We have another track. This is for sand as well, and here we have the sand drying station and the pump and all that to get it all up there. Along another track, which could be seen as a bypass track as well if there's no sand cars parked on it. So let me just point these 1, 2, 3 tracks out here on the left, and it would be where it says fuel and sand. So 1, 3 tracks, also possible bypass. And then this whole area right here is basically repair and place. So 3 tracks and then 1 extra track here for cars that might be scrapped or they're just waiting to be repaired or anything along those lines. And then 2 tracks we haven't spoken about are these 2 right here. And especially in modern diesel facilities, if you look at an engine facility like here, there's a lot of oils and fuel and lubricants going on and off of these engines. So that's what we see right here. We have a building here, right here, with a lot of engine tracks, and these 2 tracks down below, or 3 even, possibly, are just for tankers. And there's 3 tanks there to store fuel, and there's even a road connection here for trucks as well, and a lot of parking. For those diesel engines. So if we go back, then these 2 tracks that I just highlighted that are on the schematic right here are only for tankers. And yes, I purposely put these mid-height tankers right here together with this structure and also this massive roundhouse to create a little bit of a pocket here where you can look into and over and past. You don't want everything to always be seen all at once. So then if we go to the roundhouse in quick fire rapid order, the list is here as well, and the numbers, as you can see, we're going clockwise. We have the entrance slash exit. We have an extra machine shop here to make a lot of parts. Then we have 2 what I call project tracks for engines that need to be scrapped or be looked after, or maybe they're renovating some older units. Then we have 1 track here with access to the road with a gantry crane. That's always handy to have. We have 1-2 inspection pits out in the open. Then we have number track 8 to 22 are all stalls with an inspection pit. Then we already went over this. This is the exit with either a through track or towards the RIP. Then we have another exit, but that passes by the fueling and the sand. And then we have 2 tracks which you can use to store a maintenance of way equipment, or you can use it for heritage equipment, i.e. a steam engine. And then of course we have 1 spare track. You always want to have some spare, so there's a spare in there as well. And that would actually wrap it all up. So that is the entire design. And if you guys want to see a separate video on how I came up with this engine facility and how it can function, do let me know in the comments down below. I might make that if there's enough interest in that. And I hope I could explain well all the thought that went into this layout. It's going to be a truly fun layout to not only build, but also to run and to operate later on. That's it for today, guys. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.